Alright, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I never thought this day would come, and to say the least, it's been quite the journey and just a roller coaster of emotions that probably me from 5 to maybe 6 to 7 years ago would have never guessed that my outlook and just overall perspective on the series of Fullmetal Alchemist would change to a form of respect and praise for the work that Hiromu Arakawa has done for the anime and manga community. And to tell you the truth, I really don't even know what made me even strike this series as something I relatively wouldn't enjoy just based on the premise alone. I mean, for me personally, it only takes a few things to get me really going when it comes to starting a new anime and or manga, one of which being the world. When I look at the story, especially one within the shonen demographic, I need the world to play a big part into it, as well as maybe a mystery factor, whether it be something that makes you ask yourself stuff about the story, theorizing, and patiently waiting to see if what you're thinking comes true. All these elements usually play a big role in things I take a liking to in a series. Not to mention, but just depending on the shonen series that's talked about, characters are usually something I look at second when it comes to a story, at least for the most part. There are some times where, of course, I prefer the characters over what's going on in the world, but usually 9 times out of 10, I just love the factor of a world that plays into a story, as well as all the factors that come along with it. And that's primarily the reason why I actually got back into Fullmetal Alchemist, and realistically, why this video is even here in the first place. So all in all, today we're going to be going over my experience with this series of Fullmetal Alchemist and Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, and talk about what has made my opinion change and what hasn't on the series, so that way by the end of the video you will all know why I was wrong about Fullmetal Alchemist. So my initial experience with Fullmetal Alchemist was like no other. Unlike most people, I decided to just take it upon myself and just start the original series because I thought, looking back on it, that Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood was a sequel to the original. I could about say like 20 to maybe 30 episodes in before realizing that Brotherhood was pretty much the same series, just an overall better adaptation. So I ended up dropping the original series and then jumping straight to Brotherhood from the start actually. I remember initially liking the very beginning of the series and just enjoying the concept of alchemy in general. I think the world was off to a great start of explaining the countries and a little bit about the history about them, and furthermore, that pretty much stays consistent throughout the entire series, which I absolutely love. But I remember getting about halfway through the series and just thinking that this wasn't it. While I thought of the world and power system of alchemy to be something I fairly enjoyed, I recalled the main plot and just storyline to be quite lackluster, and with such a shorter story compared to most long-running shonen series, to me, I just wasn't used to the fact that every time it felt like we just reached a destination that we were already leaving so quickly. I felt as if the information was compacted all too fast, and I just wasn't a fan of that. And like I said, the plot of the story was something that towards the beginning, all the way up to about 20 or so episodes in, gave off a really strong start. And even though my now completed rewatch, most of my feelings are the same for the content I had already consumed, I think the only thing I was missing was that 15 to 20 episodes left of the story, because that for me really sparked my interest back into the series, and why I think I gave a little bit more respect for it now than I did before. But moving on, let's talk a little bit more about the plot and the characters of the story. As for our main characters, Edward Elric and Alphonse, they're pretty much an enjoyable duo, and I don't think I can necessarily talk about anything negative about them. As for most of the characters in the series, allied characters like Roy Mustang, Ling Yao, Alexander Armstrong, and even Hohenheim, the list pretty much just goes on. To me, I think a majority of the diversity of characters in Fullmetal Alchemist goes a long way, especially when touching upon a world and just history that goes along with it. Also, when it comes to the group of antagonists that we have across throughout the entire story, I wouldn't call any of them particularly bad, just a little less impressive than a majority of the villains in the shonen demographic. To me, it just felt as characters such as lust, envy, gluttony, pride, and a ton of other minor antagonists that appear throughout the story were very bland in my opinion. However, characters such as greed, wrath, father, and even Scar up until the latter half were very interesting in my opinion, and all held something to them that didn't just stick to the character that they represent when they were introduced. And out of all the opposing antagonists and villains, these 4 specifically had the most character growth and just outright spotlight when it came to them on the screen. And so with the characters, we have of course the plot of this series. As I mentioned earlier, I think that the plot is a very hard thing for me to discuss because on one hand, I find the main goal and premise of the story to be something I would usually find tons of enjoyment from, but on the other hand, there were multiple periods throughout my watch where I just felt like things were wrapping up too quickly, as I said earlier, and at other times it felt like when we were in such a stagnant position that it just felt so unnecessary. I might just be because I enjoyed the story a whole lot more towards the very beginning of the series as well as the very end. The middle parts were like very odd to me in Drachma, for example, like when they're in the snowy biome and whatnot. It just didn't sit well for me. I don't know really what it was, to be honest. But the thing I really enjoyed about this is how well Arakawa goes into displaying her world. As much as I would like to stay in a specific area for a little while longer, Arakawa is really good at always giving us a ton of information while she explains her world. And in the world of Fullmetal, there tends to be a lot of well done architecture. And if you know me, it's just kind of one of the things I love to nitpick within a story. Whether it be maybe the setting of Fullmetal, it just does an amazing job at displaying the environment around them and staying true to that nature. And just giving off that realistic feeling to the world, as well as there being that unrealistic feeling with anything to do with the mystery of alchemy and the gate. I found myself to be pretty immersed into it as the story of course continued. The gate and just the concept of God in general was another thing I didn't take too far into consideration. Rather, I just looked at it as if this big mystery was something big to come with this concept of alchemy and whatnot. And as for alchemy, I think we can all agree that out of all the power systems that come and go, Fullmetal just has such a unique swing on it like no other that I've pretty much always agreed with. But I don't really think I've come across a problem related to how Arakawa articulates her world and the build up to her mysteries, more so just some certain things that can be easily deducted. And so I think my main problem with the series are just very minor things that normally I wouldn't care about in most series, but since I feel as if there was something that Arakawa goes about her world and storytelling, to me it just feels like there could be so much more. And that's not to discredit her for not telling her story, because believe me, the ending was a phenomenal one and I thoroughly enjoyed her wrapping up her story because of course that's where she chose to end it. My issue is that towards the ending we got more information on more lore and just more opportunities that could have been used for further arcs in the series. When I look at a story, I see to it as true, meaning I think at the end of a story it's best to play out all of your cards on the table, which for the majority she did, but also added in details about the environment and world I would have loved to know prior to the climax of the series. It's honestly just a me thing and I don't really think it lowers the quality of the series whatsoever by doing that. Not to mention, I would have loved to learn more about the country of Xing, considering my favorite character is Ling Yao. But if many of you are unaware, which I actually just found out about this recently, which is practically no better timing, Arakawa will be coming out with a newer series that's placed around like the samurai Japanese type of environment, so maybe we might just get more subtle hints and information about the country of Xing in her newer series. It's just a thought though. So overall, once said and done, the series of Fullmetal Alchemist was a very enjoyable ride with a longitude of things that I enjoyed, and even though it felt like it took too many years, and I mean too many years, to really finally complete this series, I feel like I can finally say that now being finished with it, that it was all more worth the rewatch to completing the series. And while there are still things that remain that I dislike, I feel like that just comes with every series, because not everything is perfect, and even with the highest rated anime series of all time, there are going to be things that people just come to disagree with. And at the end of the day, anime ratings are, and all that kind of stuff is pretty much just all subjective, so if you like it, cool. If I don't, who really cares? When it comes to debates, sure, there may be some things that people can tackle between the two on what's quote unquote better written or not, I don't really know. Fullmetal was a series though I had definitely had to get back into, and I think it's more important to note that even someone like me who has been through so much with this series, I think seeing it through to the end is very important. But on the other hand, some things may not just be for certain people. It really all just comes down to the person you are and your interpretation for things. So all in all, I guess all that's next is to find that series that throws me down the same road as Fullmetal Alchemist. But like always everyone, to those of you who made it to the end of the video, I hope you all did enjoy the video. I don't think many people saw this video coming, considering how much I talked down upon Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood recently in a few collab videos, but I decided why not give this series another shot. So you know, if there's an anime out there that you tried and didn't like at first, that maybe tons of other people find enjoyment for, my suggestion would just be to give it another shot. Otherwise, you might just be hating on something you probably would end up really enjoying. But overall, let me know all of your guys' thoughts on the series if you have not already, and make sure before you click off the video to not forget to subscribe to the channel and join the Discord if you have not already. We got the Discord up and running again, so join the Discord in the link in the description box down below. And with that everyone, my Twitter is @AnimeAugie, and I'll make sure to catch each and every single one of you guys in the next video. Peace.